Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but anyway, yeah, that's the
Cool.
list I have.
Awesome. Well, Sean, so I can kind of transition over to the lending side and it kind of takes us back slightly to this process of where you're going to list and buy a new home.
Hmm.
One thing I think, needs to be discussed is pre-approval.
Absolutely.
So important. Sean, if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to look at a house," what's one of the first things you ask?
Very first question: are you pre-approved
Are
for
you
your home?
pre-approved? Okay, cool.
And why? Because it takes some time, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It can take some time. It depends on how complicated your situation is. If you're just a regular, salaried or a W-2 employee and, you have regular assets and everything, it's possible you could get it all done in one day and get all your documents from you. It's more complicated. You're self-employed. You have a
Hmm.
lot of things moving around. It could take longer. And we don't want to waste anyone's time, especially yours. I mean, you're already trying to list your house, doing all the things Sean just told you. It would really be horrible if you didn't have something in place and you did all that work.
Agreed.
So
And
definitely get pre-approved.
also if you find the right property
Yeah,
too, if you're not pre-approved, you're not getting that property.
that's
So
true.
keep that in mind.
I've had some buyers before who have tried to purchase the property and they had already gotten their heart set on something. They hadn't gone through pre-approval. They had just reached out to me, be like, "Hey, I found a house and I'd like to go ahead and put an offer in, but I need a pre-approval." And then we find out later that they either can't qualify for the house that they want
Yep.
or the house there's problems that they didn't know about because they didn't talk to us first. So
Indeed.
it's super important to talk to a lender. Some other things I want to talk about is just some of the do's and don'ts of the process of purchasing a home. And this
Okay.
applies to whether you're selling your existing house and buying a new one or you're a first time home buyer.
Awesome.
So, the first thing is if you are a current homeowner or you have other bills like the rest of us do, is just to continue to make your payments on time. I should go without saying, but I think sometimes things get stressful and things get forgotten during this whole
Hmm.
process,
Hmm.
and that can really impact you and your ability to qualify for a loan if you've been pre-approved and you have this credit score and this interest rate, and then you stop making your mortgage payment because you think, oh well, I'm going to sell it in a couple of weeks. I'm
Hmm.
not going to pay my payment. That might be a problem.
All right. So
Yeah.
how would that negatively impact
Oh
the
man.
situation?
So when we pull credits, a lot of people get pre-approved, 3, 6 months before they're looking. We might pull credit, take a look at all your assets, income, give you that letter. And then, you walk away, you work with Sean or, another realtor, and then you come back ready to put in an offer. And if your credit's expired, we have to pull credit again. And then when we do that and we find out that you have missed payments or you've got new debt, which we'll talk about in a moment, it can cause your credit score to drop, or it can cause your debt to income ratio, your DTIs, to be off. So you may not qualify for the home that you've been looking
Oh man.
for. It's just so
Yeah. How
tragic. It's
frustrating
so
would that be,
tragic.
right?
Yeah, really. And then the second part is just kind of what Sean talked about, which is just preparing your home for that appraisal. Making sure the house is tidy, making sure it's clean, really preparing yourself for that if you are listing your existing home. Depending on what you've done to your home, if you've gotten upgrades, like major upgrades, you may talk to your real estate agent and see if it's important for them to be there to meet the appraiser and talk through some of those major upgrades that are under the surface they may not see that are really important and critical for the home that may impact your value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So why do you think the appraisal is such an important piece within this process?
Yeah, so I mean, the appraisal is so important, not only on the home that you're buying, getting that appraisal. Just make sure that, like, it's gonna list some of like the major things with your home, like how they're calculating it, comparing it to other homes in the area, to make sure that you're paying for a home that other people are also paying for the same
Hmm.
price. That didn't sound right. People are buying other homes around you, that you're not paying too much, that
Hmm.
you're getting your value. They'll even call out minor things that they might see that need to be taken care of with the home, like if it's an FHA or VA loan, like if there's peeling paint or electrical, that sort of stuff. They may call out those sort of like safe and sound
Hmm.
issues, super important. Um, Home inspections is a whole nother bag. We can have a whole nother discussion about home inspections,
Gotcha.
but that also could be important
So
too.
I think from a lending perspective
Yeah.
too, if the appraisal comes in much lower
Yes.
than what the asking price is,
Mm-hmm.
what does the customer need to do to fill that
Yeah.
gap?
So it depends on the circumstance. They may have to fill the gap, or depending on what they're doing with, they may be able to still qualify for the loan and not have to put any more money down. So let's say that originally you qualified for the home with a 20% down payment, the appraisal comes in low, and now you have a 15% down payment because the appraisal came back
Oh,
worse.
okay.
It's possible your lender can look at it and say, well, you actually don't need to bring more money to closing. It's just going to impact your rate just this tiny amount. And you're just going to bring, the same amount to closing, and you're just going to have a slightly higher rate. So
Interesting.
there are
Okay.
options that don't necessarily mean that you're going to pay more cash out of pocket, but there could be circumstances where you do have to. So
I'm
an
with
appraisal
you.
is super important for
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Another thing is just to keep your pay stubs and bank statements available as you go through the process, especially like if you're waiting a couple of months from the time that you get your pre-approval to the time you put in an offer. It's going to be a lot easier for you to, make the offer in the house and then have all of those documents ready and labeled appropriately so that you know what they are.
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but when I say my pay stub, it saves with some sort of long generic 20 character generic name that makes no sense at all. So, going through creating a folder in your desktop, call it, purchase, home purchase, and putting your bank statements, your pay stubs, everything as you get in there and keeping it perfectly
I would
labeled.
trust her with organization.
I'm really,
She's really good
I love
at
organization.
that.
And kind of going with that too, understands that things may have changed since you got your pre-approval. We go through your pre-approval, we do our best to qualify you for the home, make sure that we're really looking at your documents. But it's possible by the time you come to us with a home that your situation may have changed, your income changed, or your assets. Maybe you've got some weird deposits or something happening in your account that we might need to be verified. So, kind of like what you talked about being the process being very stressful.
Hmm.
It can be stressful on the lending side too. That initial process of getting you pre-approved, or I'm sorry, of getting you approved after you've been pre-approved to make sure all your documents haven't changed, is it can be challenging for a couple of days. So
I
just stick
bet.
with
So
it.
you mentioned some deposit
Yeah,
issues. So
yeah.
what are some examples of the types of deposits that you would look
Yes.
at as a lender?
So lenders are required to verify that when people are purchasing home, they're purchasing the home for themselves.
Hmm.
And one of the concerns is that maybe they're like funneling money from other sources. Maybe you're not buying this house for you. Maybe you're buying it for your mom or for some shady investor or something, right? You got caught in some sort of scheme and they told you, hey, just do this and you can buy this house and we'll pay you back.
Hmm.
There's all sorts of schemes out there. And so lenders are required to verify that there's not mortgage fraud taking place.
Gotcha.
And so what happens is that when we get your bank statements, it could cause issues if you have a lot of deposits that we can't verify where they came from. So let's say that your good old granny decides to send your kids some cash in the mail for
Hmm.
Christmas because that's what granny does.
Love green.
That's what my grandma used to do. She used to send me cash in the mail. I don't think you're supposed to do that,
No.
but she would. And so let's say it's a significant amount of cash and I deposit that into my checking account that I'm going to be using for my down payment.
Hmm.
Well, that's going to possibly create a problem.
Gotcha.
We need to be able to verify where that money's coming from. And if we can't, we might have to like minus out that money from your available funds for closing.
Okay.
So you could have issues where you are short cash to close. And then we have to go to other assets, and then it's just a total disaster.
So if you have a generous grandma
Yes.
and she, let's say, gives you all of this cash for Christmas because she's amazing,
She's amazing.
what should your customer do?
You should definitely talk to your lender before you do anything.
Very
Do talk to your lender. That is the key, is just making sure that we are communicating and that we're all staying on top of everything that's happening with your loan. And I think if we can just communicate well, that we can avoid a lot of the problems that we have in the lending
awesome.
process.
Very good.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of talking about the documented, undocumented deposit that also goes into applying for new credit and changing jobs during the process. I know when you're purchasing a house, it's exciting. You go in, you start measuring to determine, how things are going to fit and everything. And then you determine, hey, like my kitchen table isn't going to fit, or there's no window treatments in the house. It's completely a blank slate. I need to go and buy something.
Mhm.
And you go down to your local store and they're like, hey, we'll give you a 5% or 10% discount if you open a new line of credit. with us, which like sounds like a great deal.
Right? Yeah. Any money off, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But then you apply for this new line of credit. If your debt to income ratio is tight, it could possibly throw you out of qualification for this house that you've just put an offer in.
Gotcha.
Or if, you max out some credit card somewhere that you already have, it could cause your credit score to possibly drop. So there's a lot of things that you have to be careful about during that process. From the time that you get pre-approved to the time that you close, you should talk to your lender.
Yeah.
Don't make any
I
choices.
think that's the best practice
Yeah.
here. Talk to your lender.
Talk to your
Talk to the
lender.
professional who has seen it all.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And then going into the changing the jobs during the process, we just want to make sure that if we're changing, we're having maybe a leave of absence, some sort of new bonus structure, something's happening with your job, or maybe you get some great offer on a job that you've been like dreaming about. Just talk to your lender about what that might impact, if it makes any impact at all during your process. We have to worry about gaps of employment. We have to worry about like if you're in the same line of work. There's all sorts of moving parts that could make the process really messy if you don't talk to us and let us know what's happening. We will find out. They typically will verify employment before closing. So if you think you're being sneaky and you can just, we've given us all our pay stubs, we're good, we're not good. Just don't do it. Talk to us and we'll make sure that you're taken care of.
So in the same line of work, what's the minimum you all look for?
So typically you want to have 2 years of employment in the same line of work is kind of what we're looking for, but
Okay.
there can be changes, exceptions to that. And some things can be explained with a letter of an explanation to an underwriter. So yeah.
Okay.
And then if you are listing your house, kind of like what Sean talked about decluttering and kind of keeping the house clean, on the opposite of that, you also don't want to start any major home improvement projects as well. So don't be like, hey, these hardwood floors are in a real bad shape. I'm just going to try to get these fixed before my listing next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not the best idea, right, Sean?
No, exactly. Especially with shipping concerns anymore.
Right. Oh my gosh. Could you
The
imagine?
flooring's supposed to be here. I'm in 6 months.
Yeah,
Okay,
6 months.
great.
Yeah, exactly. So when they do an appraisal, the house cannot be under construction, and doing home improvement is something considered like under construction. So we want to make sure that you're not tearing out things, you're not making major improvements to the house. Talk to your real estate agent, talk to your lender, and we can just kind of make sure that you're safe there.
That's a solid
So
tip. It happens way too often where somebody gets an idea and they jump on it and didn't quite think it through.
didn't think it through. Yeah,
Yep.
Totally. Well, Sean, thanks so much for joining me today to
Oh,
talk through all of
absolutely.
this stuff.
It's always fun.
Yeah, totally. We'll be doing more videos like this, talking about the process of home buying from beginning to end. I think we should definitely do a bunch more videos like this. I really enjoy it.
I did too.
So.
And thank you again. I learned a lot. Every time I talk to Kat, I learned something new about the lending process.
Yeah, man.
So,
cool.
Look her up.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much again. And please like, subscribe, and keep following us. So thanks and have a great day.
All right.
Bye.